Hello, everybody. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Ben Cominos here, outside the box. Hopefully, you're having a lovely start to your Tuesday. I absolutely am. A bit touch and go right as I was turning everything on here, but we got here, and it is still 9 o'clock. So anybody who was waiting to tell me I was late, waka waka, here we are. Fags, you can only put first in the comments if you're the first comments, bro. I see Elf there. I see a lot of people. Bunch of you guys joined in right at the jump. That's awesome. It's awesome that we're getting used to this here. It's awesome that everybody's kind of adding me into their routine through this means rather than through the traditional way. There's something Aaron's putting first now. Um there's something convenient about being on the radio that, like, you just go in the car and people turn it on, and you always wonder if people are going to take the active steps to seek you out on your show. And this is awesome. There's already we're looking just between Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, 30 people almost that are joining, and that doesn't even count all of you on the Minocqua Brewing Company Substack. And thank you very much for being here to all of you guys as well. We got a good show planned for you today. Plenty to get into here. Good show. Terrible content, to be perfectly frank. A lot of nonsense going on in the world of politics. I did receive a really nice message from a newer friend that I made on Facebook, where a new friend saying they enjoyed the knife set decoration that I had on top of my fridge in the video that I posted yesterday, which, to be perfectly honest, I thought more of you guys were going to notice, and that's available on all of my socials. Um, and they went on to say very much how political news has me feeling lately, LMAO. Not yours, though, which is really nice. What's up, Ecuadorian? Which is really nice to read because a lot of the news out there is kind of shitty, and I recognize that. And we try and jump into some of the harder topics of the day, but in a way that isn't quite as heavy as a lot of other operations do it. So I appreciate that that is kind of carrying over into the way people take in the content. You can't tell at home or on the TikTok, but my setup is significantly fancier today than it was yesterday. Still not done, still not even close to done, actually, but much better than it was yesterday. And a shout out to Justin, aka Unbound and Unwound, on the Tube of You page. He was over here for like 4.5 hours. Helping me set stuff up, and we got a ton done. Still leaves a little bit to be desired. Not his fault, absolutely on me. Um, but we're getting there. We're getting there, and I'm very excited about how things are starting to look. And just wait, once we move the aesthetics behind me, oh, guys, I have so many things. A lot of you guys are private messaging me, being like, Ben, can you please tell us what the good news is? And it's like, I can't. Although one particular business entity did receive the bad news, and oh god, I can't wait to tell you guys. Um, well, hello, David. Morning to you as well. Oh, and by the way, we are in the final 48-hour push. Let me get an exact number here. I have a feeling if you're here this early, you've probably already done what I've asked. But at this point, I need everybody to tell your friends. We're currently at 717 subscribers on the Ben Cominos Tube of You page. We got to get that number to 732. That is 15 more people. 15 more people, ladies and gentlemen, before midnight tomorrow for me to surpass a certain media entity that decided that my services were no longer required. So there we go. I saw you post that, Carla, and I appreciate it very much. So please share the link to my Tube of You page on your socials. Tell your kids, tell your parents, tell your spouses, tell your siblings, tell your neighbors, tell everybody to make this happen, because, like, let's be real, I have a good feeling I'm going to pull it off, but I'd rather I just crush it into oblivion rather than just sneak by. So everybody, tell 5 people today. It's free. There eventually will be a paid subscriber model, but I gotta wait for them to background check me to make sure I'm not a Russian bot. So we'll give them the time to do that. So 15 more people. I am depending on all of you. And a lot of people on my Discord slash TikTok have been telling me that I should cheat and just create a bunch of fake accounts, and I haven't done that. I said I'm going to do this the right way. So I need you guys to hop on there and click the subscribe button. It is free and it doesn't obligate you to anything. So I hope you will consider doing that. And I also can now have my Facebook page on a different there we go, on a different page there. There we go. And a shout out to Brandon. He actually invited me on the show The Sports Nuts, which I'm going to be on in August, which I'll have more information. He hopped on my chat just saying looking forward to seeing me then, as am I, my friend, and I have a feeling it's going to be a very fun time. Um, where did oh, okay, I see what I did. I see what I did. Bear with me here, people. I'm getting used to my new freaking 4-screen setup that I have here. Shout out again to Justin. What I wanted to do was I said what I wanted to do was this. There we go. There we go. We're getting there. We're gonna figure out the best way to have this set up if it ends me here. But so okay, we've got all this stuff set up here now. All right, let's get into the news of the day then, shall we? Thank you very much for Mike still hot, you say? Okay, great. Hold on. I'm going to turn this down a smidge. Let me know on the tube of you and Facebook if the audio sounds okay to you guys. Justin's keeping me posted there. Butt Chop was my 6th subscriber. I appreciate that, man. The simple times. The simple times when I had, thank you for all the gifts, Elf. When I still had a paycheck in healthcare. The good old times. Now now we're doing something entirely different, much better. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, just let me know. I'm gonna be working through some things here. We set up a bunch of new things yesterday, so it might be a little touch and go today, but it's all gonna become natural. Just in time for me to move next month and then have to reset everything up again. It's going to be perfect. But then, we're all systems go. But all right. Oh, and one final programming note. We are going to be joined by Jillian Bettino at 9:40 in just about 30 minutes if you're not watching this live. She is running for the Wisconsin State Senate District 29. As a Democrat, she reached out to me over the weekend. We set something up here pretty quickly. She's going to be joining us then, so make sure you do stay tuned for that as well. I didn't know a lot about her, as I'm sure you're not surprised. I mean, this is my job. We got people running all over the state, and we're trying to learn about as many of them as we can here as we lead up to primary season here in what is it, like less than 20 days at this point. We're getting there. I appreciate that, Chop. Says I'm amazing and I will be successful without the shackles. I appreciate that very much. And I'm still working on the professional setup and I'll be speaking to you about some signage here in the near future. But I appreciate the support as per usual. Now, I didn't wake up choosing violence, as you guys know. I'm a pretty amicable guy. Unfortunately, violence found me this morning, and we're going to have to start there. For those of you that are a bit newer to the show, when I was at the RNC in Milwaukee, doing my show live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday back in 2024. And when I was doing that, that was when the announcement came down the pike that was Kamala Harris had essentially been put at the top of the ticket. Hello, Violet. Um, and I took the next 2 weeks and didn't shut the hell up about it. I was really bothered by what I saw. Good morning to everybody on my Facebook page as I see more coming in. This is great. This is great. I can actually see you guys as you comment. Wonderful. Oh, and by the way, Ben, caller Ben, messed himself up pretty bad diving into a pool in Kakana. So everybody send your well wishes out towards Ben Vanderloop on Facebook if you're on that app, because he is currently bedridden right now. Whole bunch of just quadriceps, patellas, the whole deal, jumping off a diving board. Um, but so may just let him know you're thinking about him there, because I can only imagine. But so uh, it took me like 2 weeks to move on, genuinely, because I was so mad about what took place. For the record, um, yes, thank you, Chop. Set the notification bell so you never miss an upload or live stream on my Tube of You page. That's a great suggestion. Um, we are not there yet in Wisconsin. I am not looking at what is taking place with Francesca Hong, with David Crowley, with the conversations yesterday, which, if you weren't listening to yesterday's show, we had Chris Alfheim Dassler as well as Chris Larson of Milwaukee on the show at different times, one of which providing the more centrist standard attitude, one of which a bit more frustrated with the Tony Evers endorsement of David Crowley and what that means for Democratic politics in Wisconsin, the potential for that election to go the appropriate way in the future, so on and so forth. Great show. If you didn't get a chance to check that out, it's available in the archives. Now, um, I'm not going to talk about this every day for 2 weeks, or I might touch on it just because, as the governor's race heats up, I'm going to want to talk about it, obviously. And I would like to get David Crowley and Mandela Barnes on the program before the primary happens, as we've already spoken to, and Joel Brennan for that matter, as we've already spoken to Francesca Hong and Kelda Royce on the show. But I want to show you guys, and this is kind of what I'm going to spend the first half hour of the show talking about. And I posted a 90-second short this morning, kind of highlighting some things about this. But I want to show you guys, if you haven't seen it, what a survey going around Wisconsin asking you about the candidates looks like. And this is what I'm talking about. Because some of you sometimes think I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist when I talk about how in the 2020 primary there were 24 candidates, and like they'd have all their faces up on a screen on CNN, and like the host would walk in front of it and then they'd stop immediately and block Bernie Sanders' face while they talked about the 24 candidates out there. People be like, Ben, that was just a coincidence. And I'm telling you right now, it wasn't. And like, the longer you have gotten to know me, the the more obvious centrist Democratic politicians have gotten in their ways of kind of trying to skew perception, specifically for people that don't pay attention as often as I'm sure a lot of you guys in the audience do. Case in point, I'm going to now read you 3 questions about candidates in Wisconsin, and let's play which one of these things is not like the others, shall we? It's going to be very difficult for you to tell, so I really want you to focus on the subtle differences. First one. David Crowley has been the Milwaukee County executive since 2020. After re entering the race, Governor Tony Evers endorsed Crowley, saying that Crowley is the best candidate to beat the Republican in the general election and has the best experience to serve as governor. Crowley has delivered on affordable housing, improved public health care, and built consensus to get things done. If the Democratic primary for governor were held today, who would you vote for? Okay? That's example one. Example two. Mandela Barnes is a former lieutenant governor who has consistently stood up to the Trump administration. He is a lifelong community organizer who has spent his career fighting for working families and protecting democracy. He will stand up to Trump and the ultra rich to make life better for Wisconsin families by expanding Badger Care, creating a public health care option, freezing utility rates, and passing universal child care. If the Democratic primary for governor were held today, who would you vote for? Okay, seems like our cup runneth over. I'm sure we're going to keep this rolling here. Example 3. Some Democrats worry that Francesca Hong would have a difficult time beating a Republican in the general election. Hong proudly calls herself a socialist, has said that she supports defunding the police as a first step towards abolishing the police, and has appeared on a podcast with a controversial commentator who has said the Americans deserved the 9/11 attacks. Can't stress enough that's bullshit, but I'm moving on. The Republican Party is even spending over $2 million to help Francesca Hong win the primary to ensure the Republican candidate wins in the general election. Are you more or less likely to support Francesca Hong after reading this? This is what it's like all the time. And like, just to show you guys, I've gone on diatribes explaining that the whole Hassan Piker saying Americans deserved September 2001 is a bullshit line that isn't corroborated in any kind of reality. That it is highlighting that American foreign policy around the planet ultimately resulted in attacks that happened that were devastating, but people probably should be able to anticipate that kind of stuff and not assume it's because of our freedoms. And also assume that people that understand the nuance and complexity that goes into our foreign policy would also understand that you can't boil things down to that kind of simple nature. But since we're talking about Hassan Piker and Francesca Hong going on that on his podcast, if we may, I'm going to ask you guys this now. First of all, can you spot the difference in those three examples that were handed out as like an actual survey to try and get information to determine who voters want? So when you inevitably see polling based on results, always remember that that's how these kind of questions are phrased. First point. Second point. From what I understand, democracy is at stake. From what I understand, um, it's imperative that we beat Tom Tiffany no matter what, which is interesting because it seems like a lot of the effort is being used to punch left these days. Funny how often that happens. Case in point, how many of you knew this? In December, Tom Tiffany appeared on the Quartering podcast, which let's just say has some pretty unique takes. I'll leave it at that. With Jeremy Hambly, who has said Hitler had actually done some good things, defended, TikTok's going to hate this, but I don't care, defended a Camp Auschwitz t-shirt as dark humor and has repeatedly made anti-Semitic remarks. Now, how many of you knew the Francesca Hong thing, and how many of you are just learning for the first time about Tom Tiffany, the alleged threat to democracy, and the fact that he went on a podcast that actually did the things that Hassan Piker is purported to do? I'm willing to bet that I know the bulk of the answer for most of you, and I have to ask you, why do you think that is? Why do you think it is that this kind of information is made so readily available when it comes to bashing the pro working class candidate, but it seems as though we can't find the same kind of enthusiasm to bash the alleged threat that we should all be coalescing to push back against? It's a big tent, don't you know? Kristen says the only campaign strategy to defeat Tiffany is ask him who won the 2020 election. I'll be real with you, Kristen. I think there's 40 different techniques that you could be used to beat Tom Tiffany in this race. That's what's frustrating me so badly, is that it feels as though we're working overtime to try and suppress any of the excitement that is out there right now. If you guys didn't see what I posted on my socials this morning, I posted an amalgamation of different headlines from the last four presidential candidates surrounding Medicare for all, or at least single payer. Obama rejects single payer health care. Hillary Clinton's single payer health care will never, ever happen. Biden suggests he would veto Medicare for all over its price tag, even though countless evidence highlights that Medicare for all would actually save this country hundreds of billions of dollars. And the last one is how Harris left Medicare for all behind. When you start to see the way that progressive politicians are reflected in the media as radical, as people that shouldn't be taken seriously, as anti-police, as not understanding economics, and then you realize the way all the candidates that they thrust in front of you ultimately end up talking, the game starts to be given away here, right? In Michigan, which is a race that I've highlighted quite a bit on this program, Abdul El Sayed, aka AES, is the progressive candidate. As the progressive candidate, he has taken in $858,000 worth of outside money from different PACs. And to be frank, the majority of that money came from a PAC that is anti-APAC. And outside of that, all of his dollars have come from small dollar donations from within the state. The thing that all of us universally know to be true, the thing that we talk about all the time on this show, money in politics is what is strangling politics. And the faster we wake up to that, the faster we can move on. AES's challenger, Haley Stevens, has received $52 million from out-of-state PACs and corporate interests. I actually, and unfortunately, I still don't, I'm not going to be able to share this with the TikTok people here, but just so you guys can see this on the tube of you and Facebook, here's a breakdown of where Haley Stevens has received her money. It includes BlackRock, UBS, Deloitte, Ally, Boeing, EY, Goldman Sachs, DTE, PwC, Delta, Blue Origin, Honeywell, Cigna, Guardian, Humana, Comcast, McDonald's, General Mills, Home Depot, Stanley Black & Decker. I'm only listing a couple. The list goes on and on. So you tell me, do you think those two candidates represent the same outcomes fundamentally? $52 million versus 56,000 roughly dollars worth of corporate campaigns. And when AES goes on CNN Sunday morning, they can't stop talking to him about whether or not Israel has a right to exist or not. They can't stop talking to him about all these little bullshit culture war issues while ignoring the one obvious thing going on behind the scenes right now, that man is not bought and paid for, and that the Democratic Party is. And I'm not even done yet, guys. Like, it keeps becoming more egregious as time goes on here. There's a recent screenshot coming out. I'm actually going to share my screen one more time here. Hold on. Where is it? Here we go. It shows back in the day, in the 2016 election, that Donald Trump was pulling ahead of Hillary Clinton 46 to 44%. When you put Bernie Sanders in the same poll, he was beating Trump 54 to 39%. And the Democratic Party decided that they were willing to put the candidate that was polling behind Trump up at the top of the ticket. And if we lose, we lose. So be it. And then the Democrats lost. And Donald Trump fundamentally, realistically, the first term sucked, but like compared to this, it was a cakewalk. But we could have put this to bed 10 years ago, and we chose not to. So, and it continues going from there. Sergey Brin, Google co-founder, has poured $82 million of his $270 billion fortune into a new campaign group, Building a Better California. This is in the California governor's race. It's to fight the tax that and led a billionaire whip around that topped up its coffers at over $100 million. They're trying to push back against a one-time 5% tax on billionaire wealth, and they're willing to contribute $82 million in order to be able to do that. We're dealing with this here in Wisconsin. It's not that bad yet, but I have the worst kind of feeling that it's only going to get worse as time goes on. And I am very nervous that if the standard centrist BS line surrounding progressive politician ends up taking hold and people feel like there was subterfuge in this primary, it's going to subdue turnout quite a bit. I know I won't shut up about it. I said it in a more personal chat. The Ben After Darks are a little bit more inclusive. Obviously, all of you guys are welcome. I understand some of you have dinner. Some of you don't need 3.5 hours of me in your life every day, and I understand that. But for those of you that do show up for that, and we were talking about exactly this. We were talking about. I said I was like, there's a chance that there's a lot of Democrats that found my show in the Trump era. That if I don't if they're not used to me going hard on Democrats, because Democrats don't control the House, they don't control the Senate, they don't control the presidency, they don't control the Supreme Court, they don't control the Wisconsin legislature. I don't really have a lot of negatives to say about the Democratic Party for the last 18 months, because what the hell can they do? The Republicans are the one driving this car, and they're driving it right off a cliff. If they fuck around in this primary, you're going to see a different version of outside the box, and I don't know how many of you guys are here for it. What's up, Eric? How you doing, my friend? Thank you for being here. I see Jarmani saying we're up to 723 on YouTube. We need 9 more subs. Eric, tell your friends to sub to my Tube of You page. We got somebody asking to be on the program on my TikTok page. Let me turn the volume up here. I got to face you towards the ceiling so I can put you up to the mic. What's on your mind?
Yo, hello. What are we talking about here?
Oh, we're talking about Wisconsin politics.
Well, I have no idea about that. Can you teach me maybe?
Sure thing, but I'm going to take you off the air. I'm on streaming on a bunch of services here. I'm doing like a live quasi radio program, but I'm absolutely happy to keep talking about it. I'm glad you're here, man. Yeah, of course. Thank you for being here. Um, but so that's where my concern comes from, is that the only candidate that was willing to take on data centers, which is uniquely bipartisan, um, is the one that's being ostracized, the one that's against corporate dollars, the ones that it's against all the things that we talk about on this show regularly. The one that's ginning up the most excitement is the one that can't seem to buy a break right now. You know, Politico has an article out there right now that says pay raises are getting smaller, and that could be a good thing for workers. Slower wage growth could help bring down prices and ultimately mean less sting for the average worker. How many of you still believe in 2026 that just because we're all making less money, that life will be more affordable? Because I think I'm done with that. And that's what Politico's saying. Politico's not some right-wing hack job. This is corporate media telling you that pay raises, there we go, Ben. Pay raises are coming down, and as a result, we should all be beneficial. You know, back when I was working at a shitty little radio station, we got yearly raises, and my raise for 2026 was going to be 76 cents per hour. I was salary, but they would always break it down per hour. I don't think that was going to result in the cost of gasoline or the cost of goods coming down. Right? The idea that they want us to buy this kind of stuff is ridiculous. This is why when Politico, the Washington Post, the failing New York Times all put a story out there that talks like this and then talks about why it's important to nominate David Crowley, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. But remember, democracy's at stake because of Donald Trump. But also, we don't want a candidate that says, hey, I don't think pay raises have shit to do with the cost of living right now. Well, that runs against the narrative. And that's when you see everybody coalesce. It's not a conspiracy theorist. And I think I'm extra mad because I thought we here in Wisconsin were above that. I thought we were above that. And unfortunately, it looks like we're not. Um, what do we say here? I was a Democrat long ago before Allie woke me up and showed me what was really going on. I don't know if Allie did that, but it's all right. I'll let her have that one. But Job says, hit that like. It tells the algorithm to recommend the channel's content to more potential viewers. I do appreciate that. Yeah, anybody on the tube of you, realistically, anybody listening to me anywhere. What's up, Jay? I was just thinking about you this morning. Haven't heard from you. Glad you're here. I'm joking, Ali. I'm joking. You're wonderful. I'm sure you convinced Keto what's going on there, and I appreciate you for that. It's a team effort. Um, but anybody who can like or click any of the buttons absolutely helps me as we're trying to grow these things out here. So I appreciate it very much. And yes, Robin, I agree. She is quite persuasive. But so in any event, these are all kind of pointing towards a larger narrative, right? Surrounding wealth in politics. We just had a conversation about this with Chris Alfheim yesterday. She was like, if you want to get wealth out of politics, that's why it's important to elect Democrats. Democrats are the ones also taking $52 million in order to beat a progressive. So I don't know that they are the best ones. Wait, what are you saying here, CKK? Stop bashing the Democratic Party, Ben. Do you know how hard it is to campaign and fundraise off of success? Yeah, it's a good point. That's a good point. Here's what's funny is like I can tell you from my own personal experience, people are contributing, they are supporting this channel as an independent channel because they appreciate that I'm willing to call it how it is. And I wonder if more people would be contributing if I just told a bunch of liberals or told a bunch of conservatives exactly what it is that they want to hear. But I'm sitting over here being like, no, I think we can all move forward to a better option if we just really work on it. And people really are buying into it, and they're supporting this channel in ways. People are offering their time unpaid to help me build this thing out in a way that I'm never going to fully understand or be able to express my gratitude for, unless I hit it big. In which case, then we're all hitting it big. But um, it's so crazy to me that like what I'm experiencing is what the Democrats could have if they it absolutely is you guys on TikTok, don't you worry. Um if Democrats just actually attempted to accomplish in meaningful ways, not the half-assed ways they do it all the times, if they tried to accomplish in meaningful ways the stuff that they ran on, the way that they would be able to fundraise, the kind of money that they would be able to make, the kind of support that they would be able to build, and that support would go beyond just one term, but they would rather kneecap success. What are you guys all saying over here? Do I even want to read this? Oh, I have a regular listener whose parents were in town, so they had to tone back the politics. I get that. I get that. You'd hate to be let go for corporate restructuring because of your politics, so I get that. Peter says APAC pays to support division in America. The government pays them. They pay politicians. Ponzi scheme. You're not wrong. And that is part of the conversation as well. And you got to not you, the royal you, have to not be afraid to say that kind of stuff out loud. That the one common thread, and again, it sucks that like Plattner has the scandals surrounding him because I would equate him in this conversation as well. But the one thing El Sayed, Francesca Hong, Graham Plattner, Mamdani, Sanders, I always forget the woman's name in Seattle. I gotta like write it down on a post-it note. Kiros in Denver. The one thing all of them have in common, two things: taxing actual wealth, not people making $450,000 a year like Democrats do. People making $450 million a year is who progressives are looking at. and also the fact that they want to stop sending weapons to our allies in the Middle East. It's those two things all of these candidates have in common, and that's when the Democratic and Republican Party coalesce to try and stop it. As BC says, I've never been a Democrat or a Republican. I definitely I've admitted as much before. Um had I gotten a show in 2018, my show would have been blue MAGA as fuck. Like I had to evolve. I've said this before as well. What snapped me out of it was when the Democrats had a trifecta and did nothing. You know what I mean? When the Democrats had a trifecta and they did, I shouldn't say did nothing. The Inflation Reduction Act had some beneficial things. Build Back Better had some beneficial things, but it in no way addressed the overarching problem. And as I often state, I oftentimes am representative of a population of people under 40 that really don't care about the status quo anymore. That really don't think, oh, good, the roads are getting fixed. I kind of made this comment, I think, last night. um, there's part of me that thinks that if the Democrats in Wisconsin got a trifecta, they'd pass a massive increase for public school funding, which is good, which is necessary, which is something that needs to happen. But it in no way fundamentally impacts the average person struggling that doesn't have children, that maybe has kids that are out of that age. And you can say, but Ben, you got to be empathetic. And they had that. Yes, absolutely. I feel that. It can't just be that and then running for 2028. There has to be a second step that actually impacts everybody in a way that isn't piecemeal. And I am not applying for a single second that MAGA or the Republican Party is doing that either. But I'm saying if Democrats want to be taken seriously, that's going to be a very important part of this conversation. Up to 725 on the tube of you guys. We need 7 more people. We need 7 more. We need 700 more people before tomorrow. So anybody that can make some plays on the tube of you, we need 7 people to subscribe for me to finish my petty little competition. So we need 7 more. I believe in everybody. Let's make that happen. 726. Woot woot. We need 6 more. 6 more people. Let's make it happen. What's that? Still pissed about his vote, and I will definitely let him know. Aaron says all Dems are communists. Wow. I don't think my dad. Wait. Elf says I turned my dad. I see you there, Jillian. Just stand by, please. He calls me 3 times a week to tell me what a POS Trump is now. Susan, aka Clean and Sober Nation, on my Tube of You channel, actually does the same thing. She voted for Trump at least the most recent time, if not all 3 times. And now she's like, I don't know what the hell I was on. I'm done with that life now. And like, I'm the last person to mock because, again, I don't believe they were offered a suitable landing pad. Mallory says, don't talk badly about RBG and how she should have stepped down from the court. Dems get super mad. Oh, don't I know it? Jim says the status quo has been off the rails for 3 decades. Why can't establishment types figure that out? I think they know it. I think they choose not to do anything about it. Jaro says, actually, I know a lot of super hardcore Democrats that are angry about RBG. Well, that's interesting. And lastly, Samplas says the trifecta Dems wanted to play nice and work together like a bunch of bleeping pansies. I don't know why I bleep myself. Ben Cominos unfiltered, fucking pansies, and wasted it. And now the party is just laying over and letting the MAGA run over them. I agree. I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I feel like we're seeing that happen. Hopefully, we can deliver a trifecta. And you best believe shows like this are going to be holding that trifecta to account. And to that effect, with that trifecta, the state senate in Wisconsin is very much in play this year. Actually, the most recent polling I saw had the Senate as lean Dem and the Assembly as a toss up right now. So, of the 2 houses within the state, the Senate is the one that is on a lot of people's minds right now. And to that effect, I have a candidate on here. I clicked the wrong thing. I apologize. Here we go. I'm bringing you up. Get ready. Don't be making funny faces. There we go. We're speaking with, let me make that full screen. There we go. Jillian Bettino, running for the 29th district in Wisconsin. How are you today, Jillian?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad you reached out. I always joke on the show. I said, reaching out to me as a one-man operation right now as I'm expanding, that makes it so much easier on me. You got me when I was dealing with the hellscape on 41 coming back from Green Bay, but I'm glad we were
It
able
is
to
a
set something
hellscape.
up
Yeah.
there. How's the morning treating you so far?
Good. Good. Yeah. I have it's been a little bit crazy just today, but it's nice to see maybe a little cleaner air to breathe. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
it feels like it's getting a little better every day, so I can get
yeah.
behind that there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the 29th district of Wisconsin, why don't you fill us in on where that is? A lot of times, people are like, what region is that? Is that going to be mine?" Because even the people who listen to this show, very politically knowledgeable, but so we only have so much time to understand things. So fill us in a little bit about where and why you're running.
Yeah, so it's changed a lot since the last cycle. That's one of the reasons I'm running. But it is the majority of Marathon County, except for like a northern strip of townships along the northern margin there of Marathon County, and then it also includes the northern half of Wood County, and then little strips
Yeah.
of Shawano, Wapaka, and Portage County.
Gotta love
So,
that.
mhm.
Um, so you are running in the 29th district, and we're going to jump into the platform quite a bit. But briefly, what other than the redrawn maps, is this your first run at the office, or what brings about this campaign in 2026?
So I've run for office before. I ran for state treasurer 4 years ago and lost in my primary. And one of the things that I learned from that was, um, that you really have to put in the effort in the rural areas. And I thought that because I lived here and I understood the life here, that that wouldn't be my challenge, but it certainly was my challenge. And I think it was really eye opening. And I had a health problem that came up in the middle of my campaign, and so I didn't think I'd be running again. And then I found out that I was okay, good to go, and just absolutely determined to change the situation here. So
Yeah, absolutely love that. Be the change you want to see, right? Got it.
exactly.
But so, all right, let's get into that a little bit here. One of my main focus points on this show always is surrounding healthcare access. And I mean, it hits even extra close to home now because I've gotten to experience firsthand exactly that feeling of having healthcare disappear, looking at that price tag that kind of shows up on the other side of that. And fortunately, I'm in a position where I'm like, well, that sucks, but need healthcare. Not everybody is in a position to be able to say and behave that way. So, were you to be elected, how would you work within the parameters of state government to try and ease that burden for so many people that are struggling in the state right now?
Yeah, so I'm so glad that you chose this to talk about first because it is my issue. It is where I come from. I'm a retired physician, and I specialized in breast radiology, so breast cancer detection. I'm married to a physician who's a urologist, and my oldest child is also a physician. She's a family medicine and obstetrics doctor. And I think when you have worked in the healthcare realm and you actually are in the room watching the outcomes change for people, what should be their outcome versus what ends up being their outcome because of healthcare access, it really truly is an emergency. You can really see what is happening and how people are suffering. So in Wisconsin, we have, we're one of 5 states that declined Medicaid expansion from the federal government. And of course, with the big ugly bill, that's really not on the table anymore. And what expansion could happen is just really minimal. It doesn't nearly have the impact that we need it to have. So I think that the state needs to figure out a Medicaid expansion program. And then also, I am in the public option camp. I strongly believe that that we can narrow the gap between the people who are eligible for badger care and the people who can afford the marketplace, or ACA subsidies are gone too, so that adds to that complication. But people who can afford private insurance, there's a huge gap of Wisconsinites that fall into that category and just make a little too much money for badger care, but don't make enough money to pay $1,000 or more than that a month for their family health care. So we need to expand both of those programs as much as we can to narrow that gap. And deal with the public option. I'd love to see small businesses, farmers, everybody who might fall into that area be able to purchase into a public option that is state sponsored.
Okay, that's an interesting. I think that might be the first time I've heard that as a suggestion. I like where your head's at on that, though. It's outside the box thinking, not to be cliche there, but
it aligns pretty strongly with Kelda Royce, actually. So Kelda has talked about this. I even talked to Joel Brennan about it, and just like taking the option that's available for public employees. I worked at University of Wisconsin-Madison for a bit, and had access to the public employee option. And this would be expanding that public employee option. Maybe I didn't explain that very well, to folks outside of the public employee option.
Yeah, great. Very interested in that. In my opinion, the second biggest issue surrounding housing in the state of Wisconsin, I have being up here in Northeast Wisconsin. When I first moved out here, Shattuck Middle School was closing, and there was a years-long debate about whether or not we could turn it into affordable housing for people to move here versus, well, what kind of riffraff would that bring into the community? Meanwhile, as a transplant, I was sitting there like, well, I don't think I'm riffraff, and I feel like a lot of good things are happening there. What in your mind can be done to, whether it be YIMBYism, yes in my backyard, whether it be some kind of subsidy, how can we address affordable housing in Wisconsin as we're seeing these rates kind of increase everywhere, whether you're renting or trying to own?
Yeah. So I think some of it is just making sure that people are informed about the things that are already out there. So there is already a tax credit for, it's called the homestead tax credit. And it should apply to renters and to homeowners. And it is a kind of a sliding scale kind of tax credit, and is way underutilized. It could save people up to $1,200 a year in tax credits. And about 60% of people eligible for that tax credit do not use it. So I think one thing we can do is inform the public about eligibility they might have for that type of thing. We also need to upgrade or modernize our eligibility criteria. So, right now we base that on very old, not practical types of data with the federal poverty level. And I think we need to kind of consider the fact that those data were not created with the idea of inflation. They have not kept up with inflation and, housing prices, and have not kept up with transportation prices and grocery prices and utility prices and all of that. So we really do need to update those kind of criteria so that people who should have access to public housing support do have that access. And then I think another very practical thing that we can do is focus on controlling the constant elevation of property taxes. So around here, like in the Wausau area and, just throughout SD 29, school referenda have been a huge problem. And of course, public safety referenda. We had it in Wausau for our firefighters. I know other people have seen that for their firefighters, and just for, public safety in general. So if we're doing the right thing and funding at a state level at an appropriate level, and roads go there too, where we are having these referenda to pay for our local roads. But if we're taking care of those things at a state level, then we can control property taxes, which I think will really help, help our housing crisis. And then the final thing I'll say is that we need to stop having all of these investors coming in and creating, affordable housing that have, granted, countertops in their in their kitchens, and just are not affordable. So there's a couple of really beautiful new complexes around SD29, all over the place, really. And the prices are just, it's not affordable housing. It's not created to be that. It's really looking at shareholders, and I think just this constant bowing to the billionaire and the buck is not appropriate in every aspect of life. Healthcare is one of those places, and certainly housing is.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely understand that. Not everybody needs granite, especially in a starter home. You don't need to start on granite, but yeah, that's a much larger question for sure as to how to incentivize that. Sounds like you have some good ideas there. Um, Representing or understanding rural Wisconsin, obviously farm life very big in the minds of the people out there, and it's one of my catchphrases at this point. Farming bankruptcies were increasing in 2023 and in 2024 under Joe Biden. They have exponentially gotten worse in 2025, and now everybody's hammering it, but it's not like this job just appeared when the Trump presidency started. Obviously, immigration is part of that coin. You can't do anything about the tariffs, but we can do something here surrounding the workforce, making sure that the people on the farms are paid fair and equitable wages, while at the same time making sure that those businesses are able to thrive. What does that look like with you?
So I just spent Sunday with the Farmers Bureau at a picnic, a forum, and this is, as you indicated, the loss of family farms and the struggle of farmers in Wisconsin and across the country has been a chronic problem and an inadequately addressed chronically by both sides of the aisle, a failure. I think that the best way to solve some of these issues is to go to the farm and talk to the farmers or knock the door of the farmers. And I've been doing that. It took me 2 days to knock 24 doors in Auburndale because it's such a hike between, and I wasn't on foot, but between the farms. And so, to protect our farms, we have to do things that people don't even think about if they're not in farming. So succession is a really big deal. Passing a farm off to a family member or a new farmer carries the risk of increased cost, property taxes, and that kind of thing. So we have to make it economically survivable at a minimum, but a place where people can thrive. Healthcare is a really big deal, not only because it's extraordinarily expensive and because rural healthcare is problematic because of all of the uncompensated care. We have cancer services shutting down and birthing centers shutting down. So back to healthcare, that's a problem. Making sure that farmers have appropriate healthcare. So whether that's a co-op that is under the Farmers Bureau or some other type of organization, or whether that is making sure that we expand Badger Care, that we average out the cost of healthcare for farmers over years, because things can vary quite a bit depending on the year for a farmer. And then, also really understanding how farms work. And certainly the farm that I visited the other day, Griesbach Farm in Stratford here in SD29, Wood County, had 167, something like that, had a cow. They had 3 robots, so automation. A relatively small farm, not tiny small, but a relatively small farm, and a fair amount of automation where the cows kind of wander in and this laser beam Star Trek thing comes over and milks the cow, and off she goes again. So they're very automated, and this is becoming more and more popular. But there are still many farms, dairy farms and agricultural farms, and certainly picking farms, where they rely on labor. And so I would really like to see an advisory council developed at the state level for a collaborative discussion between the agricultural community and representatives there, and then also what we can do at a state level to make sure that we have legal pathway for folks to come here and work and have access to the healthcare they might need, be paid a fair wage, and be supporting our agricultural community. So just facilitating that discussion. We can certainly advocate at a federal level, but we can also continue to grow our statewide programs to support the immigrant and labor needs, not just in farming, also in science. As a medical person, there are undocumented people who work in the scientific and medical community, in the service community, and I think we need to do better work there. So lots and lots of work to be done in agricultural realm. My opponent made the comment that there's no future for small farms. Yeah, he was asked in front of a whole slew of farmers, many of whom are small farmers and small farmers. And he, what can you do for the future of farming? And he stood up and said, nothing. I got nothing. So that is dangerous, irresponsible, and lazy. If we don't have small and medium-sized and large farms, and we don't have local processing, and we don't have a local, a statewide, a national, and a global market, then we are just sticking our necks out for food insecurity when the emergencies happen, whether those are, pandemics or wars or, labor issues, whatever they are. And we've seen all of those just in the last, 5 or 6 years. So.
Sure. We're speaking with Jillian Bettino. She is running for the 29th district for the state senate here in Wisconsin. Public schools. I'm not a parent, and I did not anticipate when my media career started exactly how much I was going to be speaking about public school funding when I moved out here to Wisconsin. It's been on a lot of people's minds, obviously, and I oftentimes joke, if I'm this fed up with it and it's been 4 years, I can't imagine how everyone else who's been dealing with it for 15 years feels about the matter at this point. You mentioned property taxes in another one of your answers. And the fact that we got to do something about keeping those under wraps. And part of that kind of stems from the referendum process in which we use to fund our public schools. Does your attitude towards that funding kind of mirror that of the traditional Democratic approach here of actually using the funding the appropriate way, using the surplus, or how would you address public school funding going forward in conjunction with those property taxes that you mentioned kind of keeping in check?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a mom. I have 6 kids, 3 girls and 3 boys, and they range in age from 20 to 30. And we had a very different experience for our 30-year-old when she was there and our 20-year-old. Definitely felt the change over the last decade with funding problems, the cutting in AP programs, the changes in sports. Honestly, sports is a big thing for kids, and it's, identity and the esprit de corps of the high school. Lots of stress in multiple areas about consolidation and definitely technical education expansion, all meeting the moment and making sure that we are utilizing electronic education and that kind of things. And then the voucher programs and all of those struggles. I mean, at the end of the day, we know through research and science, which I strongly believe in, that every dollar that we put into education, particularly early education, but any education, saves us money down the line. It decreases crime rates, it decreases homelessness, it improves health outcomes, it helps our economy. I mean, we definitely know that we save money by doing this now. So I am in the camp that believes that we need to fully fund public schools. And I do think that there are revenue streams out there to do that. I think we need to do it from a state level. I don't think it's acceptable that extremely wealthy communities provide, an extraordinarily privileged experience for their kids, and a kid in a different zip code does not get the same chance or even nearly the same chance. So I think that we need to think hard about giving every kid the opportunities that they need to succeed. Right now, vouchers are the issue. We cannot be diverting funds away from the public schools when we are not able to fully fund special ed, and when we are required at a state level to fully fund, fully meet the needs of our special education students, and ends up just pulling from the general population funding, the general school funding, and really changing the course of education. So that's what we need to do. We have to, be fearless and discovering our funding for that. I would say that legalization of marijuana is high on my list. Um, if you are, I just drove to my father-in-law's 95th birthday this weekend and then turned around and came right back. It was a very long drive, but I,
Yeah.
couldn't help noticing that right on the Illinois line, there is a weed store. And basically, to get out of the parking lot, you got to go into Wisconsin. And so clearly, that's a strategic positioning. We are exporting tax revenue, millions and millions of dollars to Illinois and Michigan and Minnesota. And it's ridiculous. I mean, get with it, Wisconsin. We need to legalize weed and harvest those dollars for our communities. We need another tax bracket so that we can tax 1% to 2%. The most rich people in the state that are actually having salaries that are in the $1 million+ range. There's like 5,500 families that would affect, and honestly, they're not going to care. 1% to 2%, they're not going to care. It's really not that big a deal, and so I think there are so many things that we can do to improve our funding in our state, improve tax revenue to address the things that we're talking about.
Yeah, very interesting take there. I like how you kind of tied a couple of different things together. That's my go-to line as well, as it seems as though the other half of the political spectrum will tell us there's no money for schools, but also we're not going to let you do any of these other avenues that might generate that revenue. And then it becomes a catch-22 that's kind of hard to ignore.
Yeah.
Speaking of that revenue, this is an interesting one, and we're getting close to the end of our conversation here. Again, Jillian is running for the 29th State Senate District in Wisconsin. You're very interested in preserving the environment, obviously from a PFAS standpoint, another one of those lifelong issues. To me, the environment is a bipartisan issue, although it's not necessarily reflected that way in the way that people vote, in the way that people talk about it. One of the conversations surrounding the environment deals with data centers and the advent of AI and the water usage there. And we are seeing the conversation about data centers really make some headway across the political spectrum. Your perspective on the future of data centers here in Wisconsin from an environmental standpoint, from a surveillance standpoint, from an economic standpoint, whatever route you want to take it, your thoughts on the matter.
Yeah. So I kind of lump the discussion on wind farms, solar farms, and data centers into one discussion. And that is because in central Wisconsin, that is how our conversation is going. There's a big pushback against a wind farm that's happening in Hub City Wind Farm in southwestern Marathon County. And the data centers, there's a discussion happening in Wisconsin Rapids, just on the other side of SD 29. These issues all share similar problems. Number one, they're steamrolling communities. So they come in, they are heavily funded. Heavily funded. They have so much money. They're steamrolling our communities with big money and big lawyers. They've done it before in other places. They know exactly how to manipulate the situation, how to, act like nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden people are looking around and there's something big happening, and they haven't had a say. So I think at a state level, we need to absolutely create guardrails for these enormous projects that affect communities. And we feel it rurally because a lot of rural communities feel disenfranchised. Nobody gives a flying, about us here. There, if it was happening in Madison, if there was a big data center going up in downtown Madison or on the, in Dane County somewhere, or in Monona, or, some fancy, wealthy, then it wouldn't happen. There would be a dead stop right there. Nobody would be, they'd be like, our property values. Well, yeah, our property values, our health and wellness. So this is a big conversation. I think at the end of the day, the state has a responsibility. And again, I really like a lot of the things that Kelda says. She's so intentional and strategic and experienced about this. And, we have to create the support that these small communities deserve but cannot afford. And so we need to have a a government support system that provides those very experienced, very knowledgeable, very expensive lawyers to help us defend ourselves, to keep us from taking a wrong step or not seeing the train that's coming down the tracks. So for data centers, I believe that, it's the word moratorium to me is a bit of clickbait. I don't really think it's actually a solution. If a moratorium fails and we haven't done the work of guardrails, then we're going to get steamrolled. So again, we need to identify the issues that are at risk. Certainly environmental issues for all three of those. All three of them have environmental issues, and our government has already done lots of wonderful research to address these things. So we need to wrap those things together, create the guardrails, protect our communities, protect our environment. I'm a biology major. I've studied ichthyology, fish were my thing. And so I feel very strongly about, and I understand very completely, our natural resources are, forever old. They're earth old, and we have to protect them. And it's part of our economy, it's part of our health and well-being, it's part of our mental health, not just our physical health. And we need to be careful. My opponent takes money from utility companies, so I know who he's going to be advocating for. Just like buying off the ref, it's not a good idea. It doesn't make a fair game. So I think that we need to select leaders who are fearless and have a spine and understand the implications of it, and aren't corrupt, to advocate for our communities on all of those big clean energy. I'm 100% for it. That's another, good thing for our conservation, and I'm 100% for it. I have a 15 kilowatt wind turbine. I have solar in my, at my house. So I feel strongly that those are really good things, but I also know that we need to communicate and support our communities, to keep them at the table and to, keep them without that hatred and that anger that got us in this place in the first place.
I guess you didn't hear what the wind turbines do to whales. I'm joking. Just an FYI, not that it matters, but the chat absolutely loved what you had to say about data centers there. I mean, obviously you have your policies based on what you believe is relevant, but it seems like you're definitely hit on something there that resonates with a lot of people, specifically in the audience of this show. I'm out of questions, and I end every conversation the exact same way. We talk for about a half hour. We cover a lot of conversations, but it's impossible to talk about your entire platform. What's one thing that I missed that you wish I had brought up that you would want people to know about you, your campaign, what you intend to do, whatever the situation may be? Floor is yours for the last couple minutes here. What's on your what would you like to bring to everybody's attention?
So I think that one thing that folks need to wrap their heads around is that rural campaigning is difficult. I just saw something this morning that was like, the SD 29 where I'm running is R plus 19. That is not true. That is not true. We are 5 points from winning this, 5 or 6 points, and we haven't done a poll yet, but we are going to be doing a poll from winning this area. And that's because of new maps. So thank you to all of the people that did that work. I was one of them, out there walking and marching and talking to people and making noise so that we could get fair maps. We have a fair map. Now we need to do the work. I am working as hard as I did as a radiologist, but rural areas are hard. Those 2 days for 24 doors, that's not a winning, path.
Sure.
So the hardest part of this, honestly, is getting that message out. And we're doing that. So anything that people are willing to do, and that ranges from, getting on my website and emailing me and, let me know. Well, you can send postcards, you can make phone calls, you can donate money. We're just about to start a big, marketing, I guess you would call it. I don't know. I'm not a politician, thank God. So I get to follow my moral compass instead of this other nonsense. But whatever you can do to support us and help us get our message out, we have to get the message to the door. And that's hard work. It comes in all forms. So I think that's it. At the end of the day, I had a kid at an IBEW 388 ask me if I thought, this was his question. Are politicians are they moral? Are they ethical? Well, I don't know. I mean, no. I think that obviously we can all answer that question. There are definitely problems with that. So don't elect politicians. Elect, moms and people who have proven themselves and their lives. So with the work that they do, I worked with the World Health Organization building healthcare infrastructure as a volunteer. It didn't make a cent. It cost me money. Choose people who put their neighbors and their people above their party. The party for me just is where my interests are aligned and my priorities are aligned. But every single time, it's a conversation with the person who's standing next to you. So I will be doing the work. I've been doing the work. Go, go, go. And I really do believe that this is a winnable district and that the state Senate was winnable.
Jillian Bettina with the 29th, or running for the 29th Senate District in Wisconsin. Thank you very much for joining us today. The campaign's very interesting. And on the other side of primaries, I'll be bringing everybody in for some in-depth. We'll dive into exactly what you were talking about in the nitty-gritty. So looking forward to that, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
All right. Bye. Interesting conversation there. Your guys' comments kill me when I'm doing this here. There's part of me, there's no way I can read all of them because I have to stay focused. But absolutely awesome stuff there coming from Jillian. Again, that's the 29th district. So know your district, know your senators, know your assembly members, and make sure that you know everything about them. We're going to do our best to get as many of the people on as we can between now and August 11th. We'll see how that works. And most importantly, as I'm sure all of you have been waiting to hear, we have crossed 733. We've done it. I said it would take 30 days. We did it in 29. Fuck those guys. Absolutely awesome. Thank you so much to all of your support. I'll be putting a post together on social media later that will be of the taunting variety. And I have to laugh at what Dee says, where she says, you sound like a public radio host during a pledge drive week. Can I get a tote bag? And it's like, well, like now that Jay's done with family weekend, maybe we can talk some merch here, but I'm not going to be giving them away. I'm a capitalist Ben. Alex is a her, BC, but other than that, I can probably help get you guys in touch as well. Waka Waka tote bag merch. I mean, that could happen. That could definitely happen. There's so many ideas for merch that have been lobbed at me, and we just have to get it off the ground. And I need to get like a notepad of all the different suggestions because I've aligned myself with a ton of very creative people that make me feel insecure. There's Jay. She says yes, she's in. Free T-shirt. What's this free stuff? You sound like a communist. You sound like you're voting for good candidates or something. Oh, no worries, man. My dad's name's Alex. I too gravitate towards Alex being a guy's name. I was just keeping you posted. Oh, it's a they. Oh, my bad. I apologize. That's my bad, Alex. I didn't even know that. Didn't mean anything by that. But yeah, interesting conversation with her. I think there were a lot of good ideas in there. I agreed with most of it. I mean, as I've stated before, at this point, the public option was a compromise 15 years ago. At this point, I'm a Medicare for all boy, but there's only so much you can do on the state level on that front. So I think it's a matter of keeping everything in not that I'll never provide cover. Be like, well, what do you expect these little politicians to do? Like, no, like I expect you to do everything within your power to do things. I don't know how capable our state politics will be, especially in 2026, of some kind of Medicare for all. So a statewide public option is fine. That is not necessarily what I want, but given what it is, that sounds like a pretty good compromise in my opinion. I'm going to post a new link for anybody in YouTube and obviously on TikTok. Unfortunately, Book of Faces, you can hop on one of those or you can message. I do have you up on my pad because I'm 3 screens deep now. 4, actually, if you count my phone. But I'm going to post this up here now. Anybody who has any comments about there. Alex, I saw you providing quite a bit of insight surrounding the rural landscape coming from a farm in Wisconsin. And Allie, I saw you laughing at the idea of agricultural farms. And like, as I've stated, PA is very farm heavy as well. Not as farm heavy as Wisconsin, but there are quite a bit of farms. And I happen to know from firsthand experience, a lot of our government assistance does go towards corporate subsidy rather than small farms. But Alex was highlighting, for those of you that can't read it, on the TikTok and Book of Faces chat, that farmers aren't looking for perceived handouts. They're not looking for government assistance. They're looking to be able to do their business without worrying about how they're going to be able to put food on the table and keep the farms. So, I mean, the subsidy is a nice stopgap, but where it stands right now, there's much bigger issues. And it feels like we're trending more towards a all corporate landscape than we are anything else. I watched one of those videos. I think it was on Instagram, where they put the creepy music behind it that makes it all sound like a conspiracy. But then you keep watching, you're like, oh, maybe, I don't know. And it was talking about how a lot of food these days doesn't have seeds in it anymore because they don't want you taking the seeds, planting your own stuff, and not having to be dependent on buying more food later. And I was sitting there and I was like, well, I have been noticing a lot more seedless watermelon these days. Not to mention, anything without seeds just tastes worse, in my opinion. It's like when you get pistachios without the shells. You're like, oh, that's easier. I don't have to crack open all the shells anymore. But they suck relative to regular pistachios. We all know them, right? Monsanto wants to control seeds. Yeah, I buy that. Jim says 1 step at a time, just not public option if you qualify. Public option means everyone gets to choose. 1,000%, Jim. 1,000%. I've always said, if picture, and I see you, Alex, give me a second, but I see you there. Picture if Obama had actually gone forward with the public option in 2009 when it was a proposed compromise. Think about where we would be healthcare wise today. We would still have the private option that would cost you an arm and a leg for everybody making more money than God that wants to pay that money into the healthcare system. But for those of us that just want the basic ass meds, that just want the generic versions that still get the job done but aren't necessarily as effective as the brand name stuff, there's a public option that is super cheap with prices negotiated by our government to keep those prices low so we're not jacking up rates on the taxpayer. And it offers itself as an option, but you don't have to take it. You still have that investment in the good stuff. Like, that should so obviously be what we did in 2009, and it should so obviously have been implemented before now, to the point where now I'm full-blown M4A, but Jim's correct as well. 1 step at a time oftentimes is the approach. So let's have that talk, shall we? Alex is hopping on here. She has a little bit of rural experience, or they have an experience with rural farm life themselves. So what's on your mind, Alex?
I don't know. I feel like I needed to say something about. I said it before. We need to meet people where we're at, and let me completely mute you on my TV so I'm not getting an echo. When you think about the example from last, when I talked about going to dive bars and trying to have conversations of the political nature with people who are so stuck in their ways and at this point just like to rage bait so much that they don't care about having a conversation with you. They just want to see how pissed off you can get.
Sure.
You need to approach them the same way at their house. You're not going to walk into a church and start after every scripture saying, get a fucking load of this guy. Hasn't he ever read the Torah?
Uh-huh.
You have to understand that where they're coming from is they do have a bootstraps mentality. They are perfectly capable of understanding economics just like you do while still maintaining that almost I've been playing too much Disco Elysium lately. Like a measurehead type of thinking. It's just it's almost the toddlerification of how we treat people in farming and agriculture. We treat them like they're too stupid to know what's good for them, so they can't seriously be a part of the conversation in any aspect. And
I'd
it's
just
just
like to
the
chime in. I'm not saying that farmers don't get a little extra bad, but I'd argue that's how we're treated as a population.
oh, 100%.
We're
It's
told,
not a
yeah,
job thing, it's a class thing.
yeah,
But
we're told we can't expand the number of tax brackets because it's already so confusing. Do you guys really want more? It's like, well, actually, I don't think people making 200,000 should be in the same tax bracket as someone making 200 million. So yes, I do think we should have, but they want to make it seem like no, simple's better. These simple-minded creatures. But yeah, I think farmers do get that even further because then there's the talky thinky jobs versus the handy labory jobs and the attitudes towards those.
well, and even the handy labory jobs, like I'm gonna be so real with you. When I'm on the farm and anything with numbers is involved, that goes to ma or pa.
Yeah,
I can't do that shit in my head. I cannot do that shit in my head. But if they want me to figure out how I can figure out to make a gravity fed water system a little bit more economically feasible through materials, I can do that.
sure.
You know, everybody has their place on a farm. Even a person who is just staying, like my grandma, she has a place on the farm. I would wrap her in bubble wrap if given the chance every time she stepped foot outside, but she still provides a vital part of the farm as a matriarch of the family. Everybody has their place. It's not getting them to see that we think their labor is worthless. It's we're trying to get them to expand what their concept of labor is to begin with. If they don't understand that and they run themselves to a point of exhaustion, like we see time in and time out, and the suicide rate or the sewer slide rates, my apologies,
All
TikTok,
good. Yeah.
keep rising, we're going to see that 57% of secession keep dropping, and it's going to be 47 and 37. And pretty soon there are going to be no farms to pass on because the land is owned by fucking Taylor Farms, you know?
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. And it's been slowly happening. And more importantly, I think, and I'm not including you in this because you've kind of had your hands, you've been in the soup. But if you're not living it or if you're not studying politics, consolidation, antitrust across all industries, you probably aren't aware of what's been going on in the agricultural sector for the better part of the last couple of decades, with subsidies. And maybe even, I don't want to spring this on you, and maybe this might be a conversation for an actual more planned segment, but a lot of the subsidies that go towards small farms oftentimes go towards cow feed rather than the actual vegetables that are healthy, that are more lucrative, that might actually be beneficial to the farm. The government actually encourages you to grow the cheaper stuff that isn't even necessarily people food because that's where they want you focusing. And it really is a catch-22. And if you know the ins and outs of it, whether through firsthand experience or through kind of just educating yourself on the matter, it spells trouble because I'll tell you right now, I joke, but a lot of truth is said in jest. I am not built for the apocalypse. Like, there are days when I'm like, I don't feel like going to the grocery store today. I'm exhausted. Like, let alone if I had to grow my own stuff. You know what I mean? And a lot of people are not prepared for a world where the small farm isn't operating even at the rate that we're used to, let alone what it was back in the day. And so lots of cause for concern, to say the least. But
Yeah, and absolutely. I wouldn't act like I am any authority on specifically corn, soybean, that type of larger scale farming, because I will be very, very transparent. I come from a hobby farm. And if you don't know what a hobby farm is, they're just very, very small. The most we ever did was, I think we had 12 horses, around 8 cows, shitload of rabbits and chickens.
sure.
And we were just a little self-sustainable thing, you know, a homestead, right? Before that, my mom ran a breeding facility and we had upwards of over 30 horses, including stallions. She was a horse trainer. So that's what a lot of my background is actually in more of animal behavior and how that has to be in a Temple Grandin is that bitch. That's how I feel, and that sums up my entire personality and experience with a farm. Like,
Love it.
It's important to remember that homesteads like that and small scale farming is just as important to be a part of that conversation as the mile barns and as the more medium sized family outfits that maybe have a couple plots of land throughout the county and don't just have one little patch of 40 acres or something like that.
Sure.
It's the everyday person who can go out and afford a 5-acre plot of land with a single family home and a pole barn, maybe a haymow if you're lucky. Like,
Yeah.
These people are doing it with a dream in mind, with a vision, with a plan. And if they don't get to be a part of that conversation and they're not brought into that, you're missing out on a huge population of people who are just that much closer to the medium large scale agricultural families that might not want to have conversations about, hey, yeah, I think we should be talking about this at the state level because it would benefit all of us as farmers, instead of turning up their noses and saying, not in my backyard.
Sure.
So I guess that's really all I got.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the insight. We'll have you on again soon, talk about how you're incorporating drones and all that. Thank you very much for being here, and we'll
Suck
talk
my
to
dick, Ben.
you very soon. Bye. I'm joking. She hates drones. It's a running gag from the fireworks conversation like 2 weeks ago that I just can't stop hammering home. And I'm looking forward to hanging out with you and Mikey very soon here in the near future. Pick a night and I'll swing by. I already said we should do a Ben After Dark at your guys' place one day. I would absolutely love to do that. But yeah, she offers some insight, and it looks like a lot of you guys on the Tube of You chat were throwing quite a few comments in there as well surrounding farm life there. CKK saying just try borrowing money to buy land at the same terms as your friendly local mega farmer who is $50 million in debt. Oh, absolutely. Mikey says I got explained to my nephew yesterday. There's only 2 classes, bourgeoisie and proletariat. Oh, absolutely. The industrial farmers in northern Calumet and southern Brown County already collide to manipulate land prices to ensure that only the small number of people can buy the land. This was brought up by one of those farmers in a regular public conversation. Sure. C57557 says, I got to think of a better nickname for you. That's what we are, small cow, calf, and organic hay. It's a lot of work and very pricey in fuel this year. I can only imagine. Brian says, and that is where farming used to be, self-sustainability, and it's where it needs to go. I would agree with that. DSL says, homestead. Chris Works, I appreciate that, see. Homestead is the way to go. Nobody grows up to want to be a farmer. If they don't stay in the family, it disappears. But more people should do it on a small scale. And then Alex double down says, "What's a small square of alfalfa at now? $7 or $8?" I wouldn't even know. Aaron, we're fighting. What did I tell you about that name? Ferg said farmers are especially good at cashing their subsidy checks. Again, I mean, I understand. I understand in this politically charged environment, there are a lot of people frustrated that the same people who are receiving these government checks are voting against anybody else receiving government checks. I understand the frustration with that sentiment, but that attitude isn't going to get us where we need to go. I'm going to be real with you. It's not going to get us to where we need to go. I understand that it's frustrating, but believe you me, there's a lot of liberal shit that's very frustrating as well, and I am just figuring out how to work within these parameters. What's up, Luke? Violated Elf says, how much could one alfalfa cost? $5? Come on, David. Chris says have no government meddling at all in our place. That's good. That's good. And again, a lot of the subsidy does go to the wealthiest operations, the largest operations, just like in every goddamn industry. And we're acting like it's somehow unique to the farming industry, and I just don't buy that for a second. But so good conversation there about agriculture that I didn't expect to get into. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with them, Farm Action. You should check out Farm Action. I get a lot of agricultural research from them. I've actually had some of their researchers on the show. I should probably start reaching out to them and bring them back on because they have always had some interesting conversations. They are the reason why I was aware of price gouging in the egg industry 3 years before the FTC decided that there was price gouging in the egg industry. It's because of Farm Action. So go ahead and Google them. Not now. I'm doing a show. Stay here. But go ahead and Google them later on. I haven't looked into what they're working on in the last couple of months. But that is, they are absolutely worth looking into. What should I add to my mental checklist, Carla? It runs forever. What do you need to know? What do you need to know? Luke says, and what's up, Luke? Subsidies going to the biggest players that need it the least is definitely a widespread problem. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's what they do. Realistically, Luke, it's exactly how 401ks and retirement plans work. Like, for instance, I'm cashing out of my duplex probably by the end of the year, and I'm going to turn a pretty profit. I'm going to take that and I'm going to invest a lot of it into a very safe fund that is going to rise and fall with the stock market. So now I am going to have a direct vested interest in how the stock market works for like a pittance, right? It's not a lot of money relative to the kind of people that we are talking about. There are people all over this country. When I would do conversations, even when Joe Biden was in office or Trump, take your pick. The only thing that changes is the president that the people supported, but the talking point never changed. I would do segments about how the stock market was in no way indicative of overall economic health for the average American. When Joe Biden was in office, it would be a liberal. Now that Trump's in office, it's a conservative. They'd be like, well, Ben, you have a 401k, don't you? You have that nice matching 401k from your shitty little radio station. That's probably something that you care about. So when Donald Trump, when Joe Biden increases the cost of the Dow, when the Nasdaq goes up, when all these different things go up, that's money in your pocket when you're 65 years old. Now, never mind the fact that you're talking to a guy who had a parent pass away when she was 50. So I in no way believe that I am guaranteed 65 when it's all said and done. But even if I were to be thinking, exactly, Jay and I are on the same page. Even if I were to be thinking in that way, line of thought, the reason the stock market going up matters to these people is because the billionaires care about it. We make a couple bucks here, and then they want us to all believe collectively that we are just as invested in the stock market as these handful of wealthy people that control things. Now take that attitude and apply it towards government subsidy, and it's the same principle. They will give 13, I'm making up numbers, 13% of a subsidy to the small mom and pop operations nationwide, and 87% will go to a handful of mega corporations that are consuming everything. And then when people say, we need to get rid of these subsidies, look at how much it's going to billionaires. Democrats and Republicans alike will be like, these small mom and pops will completely collapse in on themselves if we don't continue the subsidies, though. And nobody, this is the uniparty, nobody suggests, well, how about we cancel 87% of those subsidies, then take 30% of that canceled amount, roll it into the existing 13%, give it all to small mom and pops, and then the rest of that goes back into the system so we can maybe apply that towards Medicare for all or something. That's the way it should work, and that's the way the American system works. Give everybody a penny, and then give the handful of people $1, and say, hey, why are we giving them $1? Be like, do you really want to take the pennies from these people? That's a Democratic line more than anything else as well, because they bank on your empathy. They bank on the fact that you're not going to want to take that. I don't know what VT sax means, CKK. I'm going to need a primer. The stock market and the economy growing matters if you already have capital, but most people rely on labor working. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've said it multiple times over. If I weren't a property owner and I were doing this show, this would be a much more angsty show, because I'll tell you right now, I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in, and that's never lost on me. But it was a very eye-opening experience, exactly how quickly your money goes once you don't have the money coming in that you used to have. And like, I'm telling you that as somebody that has no children, that's never been to jail. I don't have any addictions. I barely even buy shit. Justin was in my apartment yesterday. I don't have a lot of stuff. That's never been the way that I work. These posters were under $5. I got them at Five Below. You know what I mean? It's how I operate. And I'm sitting there like, oh man, like this is surprising. I can't imagine. I can't imagine what 2/3 of Americans are going through right now. I can't imagine. I got a little taste of it, a little dose of empathy, but it's not like I was lacking it before that happened. I did not need this Christmas Carol ass Ghost of Christmas Future come to Jesus moment to wake me up to what's happening. There's a lot of people in this nation that do need that. I was not part of that population, but nevertheless, it is not lost on me, and I am very sympathetic to it and empathetic towards it. Excuse me as I just check comments here really quickly, and subs. 734 Mother Hubbards. Let's go. New goal 1,000. New goal 1,000 subs. All right. Ferg says farmers wear hats with really curved rims so it fits in the mail. Okay, yeah, all right, great. CKK says it's a Vanguard total stock market index fund. Baby Ben isn't ready to become a stock baron. No, I am not. I am not. I'm telling you, I learned what brokerage funds are, and I have a Roth IRA. And like brokerage funds seem like the exact kind of safe, even though if I were a betting man, I think there's going to be a collapse in 2029. But I also think that's going to be coupled with a housing market collapse. So I'm like, you know what? Damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I don't want to be responsible for maintenance anymore. So I'm done with that bullshit. I'm not a good landlord. I mean, I'm a great landlord, but I'm not a good landlord. Justin says we want Ben to get a YouTube placard so he can use it as a mirror that he probably doesn't have. I do have one, but it's behind this dresser. I I don't know why. I don't know why it's there. How's that? Wait, what's going on here? What's Lorelai saying? Toxic empathy? Is that what I exhibit? But. Oh, believe you me, Elf saying someone should send a letter to the radio station. I'm immediately making a Facebook post on the other side of this, and I'm going to tag them in it. You think I'm not? Try me. Everyone check my Facebook page right after I get off the air today. But I'm a petty bastard when I'm angry. Know this about me. Probably Dusty. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I imagine. I don't know. I don't know. But all right, I have other stories that I want to get into here. Violated Elf says, I love Petty Ben. Aaron says, Ben, can you drag your show on longer than 11 so I can keep avoiding doing my homework? Once I get more sponsors and this show starts having like pre recorded commercials, I'm intending to make this a 3-hour show I was gonna make that joke, Allie, and I didn't. So F you, all right? Um no, I'm sticking with the you are knife guy. Um but this is gonna run 9 to noon probably, but going for 3 hours straight without commercials just isn't going to happen. Really cute story, and then I'll do my last story of the day. Within 2 months of moving out here, and again, as I've kind of stipulated, and I'm pissed I had to tell the story in a sad way because I got fired for no fucking reason. But I always intended to tell you guys about how you all held my career in your hands and you didn't uh know that at the time, because everybody in the talk radio world, the radio station that I come from, especially with the boomer generation, is kind of royalty. It's the first radio station ever. So anybody that works in radio, that likes radio, when they see the call letters of my Pittsburgh station on a resume, they're like, oh fuck, this guy must be pretty good. And meanwhile, I came out here with like 10 shows worth of experience, and I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I didn't know what good content was. I didn't know what bad content was. When people tell me your show's so much different than any other radio show, it's because I'm not basing it on anything. I'm just doing what I think is right all the time. And so I I come out here. I'm out here for 2 months and everything breaks electronically one time when I was on the air, and I couldn't go to commercials. I couldn't play music. It was just going to be dead air. And I'll be real, the shitty little radio station that I just left was much more comfortable with dead air than my Pittsburgh station was. If it was dead air for more than 10 seconds, you lost your job. Like the end. That did not happen. And so I'm sitting there. I can't go to commercial. I haven't been on the air for 2 months yet. And I'm sitting there. I sent my program director a text that simply just says help. And it turns out that he had been ushered away to the hospital because of some terrible thing that happened while I was on the air. So he did not respond to my text because he had bigger issues going on at the time. And I'm sitting there like, holy shit, what am I going to do? And what sucks is, and I kind of regret it, it's the only episode of the show that I never posted because I was so nervous about the stuff that I said, because it was just straight stream of consciousness. And I talked from 10:18 a.m. until 11 a.m. And then the top of the hour news did kick on, and the girl that's on after me, Haley, for those of you listening in Wisconsin, she comes in. She's like, "How did it go?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you got 3 minutes, and then you got to stop talking, or you got to start talking." I said, "Nothing works." She says, "Why didn't you tell anybody?" I said, "I texted BJ, I never got a response back," and I was like, "Don't come at me like this. I just talked for 42 minutes." And I tell you this story to say, now I talk for 2 hours every day and it ain't shit. And like at the time, I was like, I can't believe I talked for 42 consecutive minutes without running out of things to say. I think I might have a knack for this. And now 42 minutes is adorable. That's an adorable segment length for me to have to carry it. But 3 hours would be a lot, to answer your question. So once I get commercials, we're going to add some content or some length to this and keep it rolling from there. Aaron says, I used to only cover politics, but now I bullshit as well. Really, Aaron? You're really going to tell me that Outside the Box Radio Edition didn't have random 15-minute tangents about how Jerry Seinfeld isn't funny? Like, are you going to try and convince me that that wasn't a thing that was happening? Because I'll tell you right now, that was, that absolutely happened. She says, okay, fair. That's what I thought. Fenway Rock says, I found you as a longtime listener of the former station. I followed you and left them. Enough said. I appreciate that very much, my friend, and you're not the first person to tell me that. And I do feel bad from the other on-air people, because they are my friends, but also it's just business. What are you saying some girth to? What does that even mean? Remember when we talked about the back rooms in Oshkosh for like 29 minutes? I actually don't. On the air? That sounds about right. I thought they were dumb as shit when you told me about them. Now it's one of the biggest movies of the decade, but oh, some length. Got it. Got it. Got it. All right. And Lorelai says accurate. Seinfeld is not funny. Well, the show Seinfeld is funny for the day. Like sitcom humor in general isn't as funny as it used to be. But Seinfeld in 2026 isn't funny. Like the man just doesn't do it for me. His humor didn't evolve with the times. DSL says Seinfeld is the best show ever. Only smart people get it, though. It's good. It's not the best show ever. The best sitcom ever is Community. I will fight anybody on that. The best sitcom ever is Community. It's intelligent. It's funny. It's nostalgic at times. It's very compassionate at times. It's great. And like a lot of the staff hated each other, and that's when things are the best. It's like the Oakland Athletics from the 1970s. That's when they were winning Super Bowls. Whole team fucking hated each other. And that's how Community worked. Yeah, I'd argue Larry David is infinitely funnier than Seinfeld. The Office is all right. Community's where it's at. I will fight anybody on that. Arrested Development is my second place, behind Community. And then I do like Friends, unfortunately. I grew up in a Friends household. But if I could have picked as an adult, I probably would have trended towards Seinfeld versus Friends when that was like, because like I'll tell you right now, nobody in this chat grew up or was in their 20s or 30s watching both Seinfeld and Friends. You only watched one or the other. And I was in a Friends household. And I love Friends. I can quote so much of that shit, and it is very funny. I always am going to have a nostalgia moment for it. But if you ask me what adult humor I grew up into, I would argue Seinfeld would have been where I ended up. Trees Are Cool and I are fighting now. That's okay. People struggle hearing the right opinions from time to time, and I recognize that. Trust me, I've been doing this job for almost 4 years. People struggle dealing with me. No, you didn't, Jay. You're fucking lying. She's saying she watched both. No, she didn't. She's going to try and convince us she's the first person ever in human history to watch Seinfeld and Friends. See, I don't count Always Sunny in Philadelphia as a sitcom because there's no laugh track. Although I guess Community doesn't have one either. Always Sunny is up there, and that might. All right, now I'm shooting from the hip, and now I need to like think through my top 5. I still have Community at 1. Community's always going to be 1. But Always Sunny is fucking brilliant, and it's been on forever, and it's still funny. I don't know. Now I'm lost. 30 Rock is also, that's like in the, oh, you see, this is going to end up being the rest of the show, isn't it? Aaron, you might get a show till 11:30 today because 30 Rock is a banger as well. And here's what's crazy, Jake. In the 90s, must-see TV was an NBC thing. It was Thursday nights, and they were like, nobody can beat us on must-see TV. And it was Frasier, Friends, Seinfeld, and then a fourth show that would always rotate that like Mad About You would be it sometimes. There would always be something, and then it would phase out, and then something new would go, but it never caught on like the other 3 shows. And everybody's like, that's when sitcom humor peaked. But then in the 2000s, freaking NBC had Community, The Office, 30 Rock, and Parks and Rec all in a 2-hour block, also on Thursdays. Now, that was at an era when I did not watch TV at all. Like, I caught all those shows after they were on. I wasn't watching them live. I basically didn't watch TV for most of my 20s. But I caught up on everything after the fact, and that was not even talked about. Community was canceled 3 times. It's the greatest show ever. It was canceled 3 times because America's stupid is what it is. And 30 Rock was another one. I used to think Tracy Morgan was a bum. I was like, why do people think Tracy Morgan is so funny? I don't understand it. And then I watched 30 Rock and I'm like, oh, so this guy's a genius. This guy's one of the funniest people yet to be created. And I had no idea until that show came out. And I mean, Tina Fey and I mean, she's Greek, I'm Greek. I'm pretty sure she's married, but if she weren't, you know what I mean? But I love that woman. I'll watch her in anything. Uh, and the rest of the cast. Jack Donaghy is without a doubt the best Republican ever put into a comedy. Because he's hilarious in all the ways you would think, but it's not like outright derisive towards Republicans, and I love it. It's like the Mitt Romney era of Republicanism that was like easier to make fun of, like in a fun way, rather than what's happening now, where it's like, okay, please denounce ICE, you freaking. Got a lot of people lying to me about watching Seinfeld and Friends. I don't believe any of you. There's nothing you could do short of so many family videos of you watching Seinfeld being like, I can't wait till Friends is coming on. That's the only way you're convincing me. Aaron's asking about ER. How do you even know what ER is? But I remember my parents watching it. In terms of like adult stuff like that, when I was a kid, I was into The Practice. Never missed an episode of it. It was on like Sundays at 10 p.m. and I refused to go to bed until after The Practice was on with Dylan McDermott, bunch of other people, I'm sure. When I worked at Kmart, I was the only one on the floor during Friends as everyone took a break. We were on a break. You get it? You get it, Chris? Scrubs, another good one. I'm pretty sure that's in the middle of a revival. I haven't heard a single thing about it. You know, I never saw Smallville, and like look behind me, and I've never seen Smallville. That's pretty crazy, isn't it? Why is it time to wrap up? What did I do? What did I do? Always Sunny is great when Charlie is solving that problem with his string diagram. That's how I feel about politics. Absolutely. I actually have heard a fan theory about that. For those of you that don't watch Seinfeld, Charlie Day puts together this comprehensive conspiracy theory. And he keeps saying Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. He's like, I can't find this Pepe Sylvia. He doesn't work. He doesn't work in the anywhere in the business. And like it's a running bit on the show that Charlie is illiterate and he can't read or write particularly well. And so it's a fan theory that Pepe Sylvia was actually Pennsylvania because they're in Philadelphia. And now that I heard that, that's the way that I look at that episode every time they Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. You'd be smitten with my kitten mittens. You know what's funny, Butch Chop? I was doing Ben After Dark, I think, with Anna a couple weeks ago, and I went, do your cats make too much noise? And she looked at me like I had 3 heads. And I was like, that's a very common joke, and I'm glad you were there. What can I admit on the air? What are you people doing? Interesting, Ben is ignoring trees are cool comments. Wait, what'd she say? Oh, you're all fighting. God damn it, we were fighting though. Yeah, well, I don't know what you want me to say. You can't admit what on the air, Carla. Yeah, I think we've gotten to the bottom of this. I'm right, you're all wrong, but I value your opinions. Oh yeah, absolutely. Although you beat me in an arm wrestling match, maybe Carla, but I have it on good authority that I can beat up any woman shorter than me. So if you want to set up a ring, we can. Don't clip that, Allie. No, I met Carla. Well, not met. We've met together several times, but I went to a political event with her a couple weekends ago, and she messed me up pretty quick. I can acknowledge that. She's actually going to be security because she offers no technical skills to the podcast. So if any of you wanted to fight me, I got Carla on my side. Trees are cool. At least I thought I did. Apparently, me talking shit on like I don't even know what I said that that rubbed you the wrong way. I've already forgotten. Was it I said I think as an adult that Seinfeld would probably be funnier than Friends? For the record, I've seen every episode of Friends 1,000 times, and I have not seen every episode of Seinfeld. Oh, The Office. Meh, it's fine. It's fine. A little basic. A little basic, but it's all right. Nothing wrong with being basic. I just, I'm a little taller than that, is all. Guys, I had a story about a police officer using Flock to look in a locker room, and it doesn't feel like there's an appropriate segue to that story at this point. Um, that something was funnier than The Office. You said fight me, so here we are. I might have said that. I might have said that. Seinfeld tops Friends in my elder years for sure, says Jarmani. I think so. I think so. And I grew up on Friends. Like, I'm very pro Friends. I'm not anti Friends at all. I'm anti the lack of black people. But again, different time, you know? Thank you for all the gifts, Elf. I appreciate you very much. And I appreciate everybody who has been chipping in for on the show. Anybody who has a couple bucks to spare, I do have my Venmo available in my link tree, which is available on my YouTube bio as well as my Facebook links. If you look in my broader description, where did we end? I'm going to check the tube of you one more time here. My brother sent me an audio file with the head exploding emoji. I'm very excited to see. I'm not going to play that for you guys in case it's crazy, but we'll see. All right, we wrapped up at 7:34 today. On to 1,000. I'm not going to push as aggressively though, but I mean 1,000 does help me monetize my YouTube streams even further. So something to keep in mind. Wait, what's happening here? Only college chicks watched Friends. Well, college girls and me. Doesn't sound like a bad crowd to be running in. Jarmani's off to register voters. Tomorrow is cutoff for online registration. You know, Erin, the intern, was telling me she's no longer registered in Green Bay. She's registered in Milwaukee now. And she was like, I feel like I should have just stayed in Green Bay. My vote was more important there. It's important everywhere, but yeah. Ben was a college girl confirmed. Well, I mean, I'm not going to answer that question because I feel like no matter what I say, I'm probably stepping in it. I'm going to save that flock story for tomorrow. I think that probably makes the most sense. This was a fun way to end the show. This was really fun today, though. Good conversation. If you guys missed any of it, we had a state senate candidate on. If you're just tuning in now, right around a half hour into the show. If you didn't get a chance to check that out, we also talked even more, highlighting the impact of money in politics, all that jazz. Ended with a far too long conversation about sitcoms, but you know what? That's always how this show has been. Thanks, bud. Back at you. Yeah, happy to know you too, Trees. It was fun on Friday, BTW. I apologize. I got sucked into a conversation with someone else. We didn't get a chance to chat as much as I wanted to. Flock meeting tomorrow in Appleton. I am going to be there. We'll talk about it more during tomorrow's show. I'm going to get out of here. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day. And I have a Ben After Dark tonight. I don't believe I have anything scheduled guest-wise, so it might just be a pretty chill one tonight. But we'll hang out for a while, do the damn thing, and we'll get into it more then. So thank you very much for being here. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.